Hey, Matt Alt here. Today I am in the messiest, most cluttered room of my house because I want to talk about the subject of Japanese clutter. The reason why is because I wrote an article last week for an Australian magazine called Eon. It's called The Joy of Japanese Clutter, and you can find a link to it in the description below. The reason I wanted to write this article is because I have found so many books and so many articles out there on the topic of Japanese minimalism. And, this is a major genre of Japanese literature. Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Japanese Tidying is a multi-million bestseller all over the world. And people are obsessed with the idea of Japanese simplicity. They see it in things like austere, natural Shinto shrines, or in the uncomplicated lines of Zen Buddhist temples, to the point where Zen has become this kind of synonym for minimalism in the English language. It's not in Japanese, by the way. If you ever use Zen to refer to like a iPhone or something in Japan, you're just going to confuse people. It doesn't work that way here. That's like an American borrowing of it. Anyway, there's tons out there written about Japanese minimalism, but I wasn't able to find very much written about something that I've noticed about Japan. It's maximalist side. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of aspects of Japanese culture and especially aesthetics that do tend to lean towards the simplistic, or not the simplistic, but the simplified, the minimal. You have the architecture of Tadao Ando, for instance, or you have major Japanese consumer chains like Muji. There's entire veins of Japanese cuisine like kaiseki that are all about the curation and like the simplification of the foods that they present to customers. And that stuff is great. I love it. I love going to Shinto shrines and kind of being inspired by the natural environment there. I love the quiet and solitude of Buddhist temples. I love that kind of stuff. But there's very, very little written about the flip side, which is if you've ever visited Japan, or if you've ever been inside a Japanese home, you're going to know what I'm talking about. This is not a minimalist place. Like, people are surrounded by stuff, all sorts of stuff. And the city itself, especially big cities like Tokyo, Osaka, places like that, I mean, when you look at them from above, they're like this dense visual information. They're kind of cluttered on a macro level. And that clutter translates down to a micro level as well. Some of my favorite places in Japan are ones that would be considered absolutely untidy. Not in an unhygienic sense or a dirty sense, but in a full of things kind of sense. Boutiques, izakaya, or izakaya as we say in Japanese, stores, specialty stores, like the toy shops that I like to go into. They're absolutely filled with stuff. And when I wrote this article, The Joy of Clutter, I wanted to get across that I think Japanese style, curated, cozy clutter spaces can be every bit as like invigorating and nourishing as these minimalist places that get all of the attention. In fact, I think they're some of the most fun places in Japan because they're often run by really quirky, individualistic people who fill these spaces with all sorts of things that reflect their own interests, their own minds. And when you enter into them, you're kind of entering into a conversation with those people. So clutter gets, in my book, kind of a bad rap. I think that clutter done right, which is what I'm writing about in this article, again, link down below if you want to read the long form, is something that can be as magical as a uncluttered space. I want to be really clear that I don't think clean and tidy and clutter are necessarily opposed to one another. In fact, I think they make one another. It's like a yin yang, or like the tides. You have clutter, you clean it up, you have tidiness. They make each other. And that's why I actually don't see that this article is like opposed to Marie Kondoism or anything like that. In fact, believe it or not, this space behind me, I think she would be completely in agreement that this is a tidy space in the sense that each and every one of these objects sparks joy in me. It makes me feel happy. And I think in the very best Japanese clutter spaces, you see that joy. You see the interests of the person who made it. You see their personalities. You can see it in things like those boutiques or these izakaya and things like that. And it's what makes them so inviting and warm and comfortable to be in. I actually don't find incredibly minimalist spaces to be particularly comfortable. Like, I like to go visit them. It's like a kind of clears your mind kind of thing, but I wouldn't want to live in them. And that's exactly what I write about in the piece. So please, if you have a chance, check it out. It is a long read. It's about 5,000 words, which is pretty long for an internet article, but I needed that space to explore this at depth. It was actually picked up and serialized in the Guardian newspaper, so if you're in the UK, you might have seen it there. But yeah, Japanese clutter. I think it's a road to happiness. And as you can see, I practice Japanese clutter in my own life with all of my Japanese toy possessions, books, and things like that. Anyway, that's it for this time. I'll be back soon with another video a little bit later this week. But in the meantime, get reading and talk to you in the comments.